Shalom, shalom again, everyone. This is Amatziahu, coming back to you again with this final installment for the Terminator seed. This is the redacted portion that I had to really sort of sit on its own because it was a bit long. But we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to continue. But of course, the hope of this presentation is that for us as a people, that we can have understanding of what's happening around us. And with this information, we can make better decisions for everyone with respect to safe, natural, and responsible practices when it comes to getting back to the land farming as the Most High intended. So we're just going to continue on. So, I've spoken about in the past the myths that have been perpetuated by the advocates of modern biotechnology, right? And it's that these technologies and especially genetic engineering are likely to provide a solution to world hunger. We know this is not the case. So while technology, according to them, brings relief to life's drudgery, I'm going to say that that's not the case, and that it carries an enormous amount of social, economic, and ecological disasters, right? So, the side effect of this so-called technical development has become obvious with the advent of this term you've been hearing recently called the Green Revolution. All this has led to has just been a decrease in what we call biodiversity, and an increase in pesticides use and genetic engineering. So we're going to get back quickly again to this Terminator technology. So what is the Terminator technology? Well, it's what's called a genetic use restriction technology, otherwise known as GURT, G-U-R-T. And it's the genetic modification of plants to make them produce sterile seeds. And these sterile seeds are produced in the second generation, right? And they have a name for this, and it's famously called the suicide seeds. It's what's known as a biotech non-logical innovation, and it was patented in the United States. Now, I believe that this technology, right, is a very present danger, for the lack of a better term, a clear and present danger to agriculture as we know it. And Monsanto is looking to spread this technology across the entire earth to try to own the very seed that people use to produce food to eat, right? Particularly in what they refer to as developing countries. These are places that they'll target because they're hoping to take advantage of probably desperate mindsets of people and how they operate, right? So we're just going to really walk this out very carefully. So this technology was patented by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the seed company Delta Pine Land Company, right? Delta Pine Land Company is a subsidiary of Monsanto, of the seeds and agrochemical multinational part of Monsanto, also known as American Home Products. Now, this technology is appropriately named the Terminator by the Canadian Development Organization known as RAFI, Rural Advancement Foundation International, which has been one of the groups that has spearheaded an international campaign against the seed. So, what does the Terminator seed do? What it does is that it alters the expression of certain genes in plants, right? So that the plants terminate their reproductive switch about the embryo, right, and make themselves sterile. What happens then is that the plants then produce seed that cannot germinate. Monsanto describes this technology as a gene protection technology. In other words, to protect their genetically modified seed. So let's look at the mechanism of how this works. The Terminator gene action, as it's called, right, otherwise known as the operon concept, was first put forth in 1961 by a man named Jacob Monad. It explains the gene regulations in all organisms, sorry. So based on this mechanism of gene expression, the technology which he developed this technology, going way back then, right? Basically what they do is they take three stretches of DNA which carry genetic information. It's then introduced into the plant for this very purpose, right? The first bit of DNA has a particular type of promoter, as it's called. And then the promoter is then a stretched DNA where the process of converting a gene into a protein is then created or initiated, right? The promoter is then used for the Terminator genes, which will become active only in the later stage of the maturation of the plant, whatever it is, whether it's corn, whether it's soy, whatever it is that they're trying to have this expression take place, right? But here's what happens. If only this promoter and lethal gene were inserted into plants, then even the first generation of seeds, right, are not going to sprout. Why? Because they have what's known as a blocking sequence. This blocking sequence between the promoter and the lethal gene happens so that the latter is prevented from being expressed, right? What does that mean? It means that the second bit of DNA that's inserted, as I spoke of, carries the gene for an enzyme called as recombinase, which is able to recognize the incision that was made, right? The incision sequences, rather, and remove these, along with the blocking sequence from the strip of DNA, right? The recombinase, or the repressor gene that they insert, is kept in control by another type of promoter. This promoter can be expressed. The recombinase enzyme will not then be produced if a particular protein is present, right? So we see here that they are causing certain DNA expressions. They're causing certain, what we would call mitochondrial expressions as well as chromosomal expressions by cutting off and by inserting, right? So let's kind of recap here a little bit. The Terminator technology is a genetically engineered suicide mechanism, right? That can be triggered off by specific external stimuli, right? The preferred trigger, however, that they used is the antibiotic tetracycline, which is applied to the seeds. Now, you hear them many times talk about, well, people have antibiotic resistance because they're overprescribed antibiotics and all of these things. But we see that is not the case because you are what you eat. You consume things that are already in the foods. So here we see that in these seeds or whatever is produced that is going to be consumed, the antibiotic tetracycline is going to be present, right? So what happens as a result of the introduction of tetracycline, right, is that the seeds of the next generation, because of this trigger, will self-destruct by simply auto-poisoning themselves, right? The main version, however, of the Terminator includes a set of 3 novel genes that have been inserted into one plant, right? But there's another version which divides 2 or 3 genes into 1 or 2 plants that are later to be cross-pollinated, right? They're going to be cross-pollinated. When this happens, the ultimate outcome is going to be a dead seed in the following generation, right? Now, one of the problems we have is that this Terminator technology, due to the fact that the top 10 largest seed companies globally, or on the earth, as we would say, control half of the world's commercial seed market, is going to be a big problem, right? So if the Terminator technology is commercialized, which is what they're focusing to do right now, those corporations, right, are going to try to incorporate this technology into all of their seeds. This will just do one thing. is going to secure a much stronger monopoly on the seed market, right? Compared to patents, because this technology, what it's going to do is that it's going to ensure that it's impossible for farmers to reuse their once harvested seeds that they would harvest and dry and be able to replant again or to even keep, right? So I'm going to just give you some information from patent documents, right? Quote, the present invention can be used to make a variety of transgenic plants. The method is particularly suited for use with plants that are planted as a yearly crop from seed. These include, but are not limited to, fiber crops such as cotton and flax, dicotyledonous seed crops such as soybean, sunflower, and peanut. Right? Listen carefully. And peanut. Annual ornamental flower, monocotyledonous grain crops such as tobacco, vegetable crops such as lettuce, carrot, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower, and fruit crops such as tomato, zucchini, watermelon, cantaloupe, and pumpkin, right? So what is the situation that we're going to have here? The transgenic seed is very dangerous. It's dangerous to the health of the environment. It destroys the natural seed pool that the farmer has and makes the farmers slaves. It's going to make them slaves to the maker of the seed, or the one who has genetically altered the seed, which is Monsanto, right? Not to mention the health impacts that it will have on us, right, when it's released into the general public, right? So what has been realized is what has been released or what has been leaked is a vital piece of information, right? A biotechnological innovation, listen carefully, was patented in the United States under the patent number 5723765 and is titled Control of Plant Gene Expression, granted on the 3rd of March 1998 by the United States Patent Office to U.S. Department of Agriculture and the seed company Delta Pine Land Company, a subsiding of the seeds agrochemical multinational Monsanto. American Home Products, Delta and Pine Land Company, has been given exclusive license to sell the seeds, and the USDA is to get a royalty of 5% on the net sales. So we see here what is happening. We see that what is supposed to be a governmental organization for the protection of food quality and food safety is a part of the process and will get paid a percentage of the sales. The USDA and Delta Pine Land Company have applied for a license in 78 countries. Delta and Pine Land Company is the largest cottonseed company in the world and had a turnover of $183 million in 1997. Monsanto, its parent company, operates in India in the seeds and agrochemicals market. Monsanto, which brought Delta and Pine Land for Terminator technology, is now the largest pesticides firm, the second largest seed company, and one of the 10 largest producer of pharmaceutical and veterinary medicine in the world, right? So I cannot stress to us why it's important for us to pay attention to this information as I continue and to heed the warnings, right? We have to understand what is going on around us, that we are able to recognize the insidiousness of what is happening. He who controls the food controls the people. And so we have to understand, right? I'm going to remind us that the Most High says to us that we must eat that which produces seed after its kind, that we cannot cross diverse plants or diverse animals. We cannot do these things, right? Because they're an abomination. So we see that one of the ways in which our health can be attacked is not just by the air, the water, and by the food, but we can also change how we are in terms of our genetic makeup by consuming foods that are genetically altered and can be targeted once consumed to genetically alter us also, right? So I'm going to say shalom here as I come back with you very shortly with the next installment of this. I did not want to make this one very long for various reasons, but I want you to listen to this information carefully and get to understand and keep your eyes open around you as to what you're dealing with. When you have the seed, dry the seed. When you have the seed, reuse the seed. Do not consume anything that does not produce seed after itself. If someone comes to you with a plant in which cannot regrow in the next harvest season, then you need to get rid of it. But also keep in mind that if you plant seed in the soil that has been genetically altered, one of the things that that seed will do is genetically alter the soil in which it's planted. So I wanted to keep these things into consideration. Be careful, be diligent, right? Stand firm. Um, Grow what you eat and eat what you grow. So with that, I say shalom, and I'll see you again soon. This is Amatsu.